That being said, I fancy myself more of a producer and a director. Although I have been a cameraman, I by no means consider myself a professional cameraman. And some of the things that I'm going to discuss with you, you could probably easily see or read in a book. I'm positive today in the internet there's somebody who's got a how-to do it. But for me, I'm from, in America we have a saying, the Missouri, the show me state. If someone shows you how to do it, if they explain it to you, all of a sudden things start to make sense. Every one of you sat and watched the two. We lost all comms? I think this one? No? Okay, now I got to stay here, huh? I think the battery went bad. You guys didn't even put new batteries in.
Of course not.
Yeah, I got a red light on this. Okay, that's done. That's all right. Oh, there you go. What you don't take into account every time we watch television, every time we watch a movie, we follow the storyline. We follow the hero or the heroine. We follow the action. But we don't really look at how it's being broken down. When I was describing some of this earlier today, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be the scene where a car pulls up in front of a bank and a guy gets out of the car. Now, I just described it in 5 seconds, and if you watched on screen, that may be 15 seconds. But if you really take that scene and break it apart, the first thing that you're going to see is a wide shot of the car. And at the same time, you might hear the two bank robbers talking, but you don't see them yet. You just see the car traveling down the road. Then there'll be a close-up where you're looking through the window and you see the two guys talking. One's arguing. All of a sudden now we go to what's called a reverse shot, where the guy in the passenger seat is looking at the guy who's driving. Again, we go back to a wide shot as the car stops in front of the bank and the doors open. As the door opens, because it's a close-up on the guy's foot as it steps out to the curb. Everything I just said takes 15 seconds. But how many different shots was that? How many different camera angles? It tells a story. The story was just two guys pulling up in front of a store. Now, how do we as underwater photographers achieve the same thing? Well, it's easy. Some of the examples that I'm going to show you are the same things I just described. And these are things that you can read about online. You can buy books on how to edit. Most of this is going to be done post-dive, post-edit. You never really want to try and edit in the camera. What you want to do is, let's say on a dive, you want to detail the anchor on a ship. And you want to do the same exact thing that I just told you. You want to, this anchor is probably the best thing on the ship. The whole ship is all broken up, but there's this beautiful anchor, there's always fish around it, and you want this shot. So that's the shot you want. Most amateur videographers go and they just shoot it. If they're really good, they might do a pull, they might do a push, which means they pull back, they may push into it, and maybe they'll swim around it. But if you're trying to show your wife or your next-door neighbor how much you love diving, it's not going to be as dynamic to them, because to them it's just a rusty piece of steel. How do we convey a story by doing the same exact thing? Well, if you storyboard it in your mind, like I'm just about to do it with you, is what we do is the first thing is we have what's called a reveal. We see fish and we see a shadow. Nothing's lit. It's obviously the underwater scene, and now all of a sudden we see a diver and his torch swimming towards us. Well, we're back on?
Back on.
And by the way, you divers and cameramen understand technical difficulties. Anytime you add water and electricity, there's always a problem. Obviously, there's no water here, though. So the diver now is approaching the anchor. We don't see the anchor yet. All we see is a light, a torch, very slowly moving, and then all of a sudden the diver comes into focus or into the lights of our camera system. All of a sudden the diver stops and his intent is to look down, and at the same time the camera slowly pulls back to reveal what he's looking at. It's an anchor. For a 3 count, we hold that position, then we do a reverse shot where we're now looking over the top of the diver and we can see what he's looking at. We can see the anchor from his POV or point of view. Another cutaway comes from the other side as he reaches his hand down and he touches it. He's done looking at the anchor, he starts to swim away, the camera pulls back and follows him, the diver swims out of the shot, and we've got blue water. How would we do that? Well, honestly, you're not going to get it. You might get it all in one dive if you choreograph it with your diver. If you're in an area of limited visibility or an area that gets stirred up, you may not have the opportunity because the diver moving by may disturb the visibility. So these shots will have to be done over a series of dives or over a period of time so that you can get the angles. Obviously, professionally, we have, and Hollywood and any other television program has multiple cameras shooting multiple angles. But even still, any particular scene may be shot 5 or 6 times from different camera angles to achieve that. So for you wanting to get this image of the camera, on your camera of the anchor, you're going to want to shoot wides, which is again the big scene, the big picture. You're going to want to shoot cutaways, which could be the diver, the diver's face. You're going to want to have a sense of movement. One of the things that we tend to do, and is good because we don't want to make our viewers seasick, we don't want the camera rocking. But if the camera is stable and static, so is your image. And people don't look at things that way. We constantly move, we walk, and the same thing applies to diving. So some of the images that I'm going to show you are things that we call sweeps, where the diver looks at the anchor and very slowly is not only panning, but he's moving just ever so slowly, and you're going to see that quite often. They're not static images because we become bored. Our brain becomes bored. But if it's moving, even though we're looking at the anchor, we're looking at it at a different perspective, and the depth of field increases as well as we move around it. Cutaways are also good. We don't want to do too many of these tricks, and you're going to understand what I mean, because if we keep cutting back and forth, it's the same thing as using zoom too much. As a matter of fact, I'd rather see that nobody ever uses zoom unless there's a reason, like you can't fit into something. Anytime you want to get closer, move the camera closer. If you want to get wider, pull back. Zoom is the best way to get a headache underwater. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of examples, rough examples first, and then some other things of what exactly I'm talking about. And then I'm going to go to some actual episodes of Deep Sea Detectives where you'll see some of these things being used on a documentary, well, on a series, a television series. And again, these are the same tricks that anybody uses topside, but here's your problem. Where a film crew has got all day and they've got all this money, you've only got 30 minutes of diving, you're operating from a rib, and you've only got one camera. So that's why you want to optimize your time underwater. You can go in the water with your camera and get lucky, or you can tell a story. Telling a story is going to really ask a lot from you as an obligation to your viewers. And that means that you're going to go down, you're going to dive the wreck, and to create a scene, let's say with that anchor, may literally take you 4 dives over, a month, if you're only making 1 dive a day and you're diving on the weekend and you've got to play with the kids and mow the lawn and do all this stuff. So you're going to invest a lot of time. But in the end, you're going to have something that people are going to go, that was fantastic, and not even know why, because it's got professional value into it. So looking at that, let's discuss and go into some of these examples. So, all right.